Hello everyone. In the previous tutorial, we have discussed about interface default method, right? In this tutorial, we are going to discuss about what is interface static method. Why Java people introduce static method inside an interface. That is, what is the purpose of static method inside an interface. Then we are going to see syntax of static method. Then I will explain one simple example, and then we are going to see some important rules that we should remember about static methods. Okay. After that, we will focus on some frequently asked interview questions about static methods. I will cover all these points in this tutorial. And don't worry, I will go very easy so that you can understand it easily. Okay. So let's begin. So static method is one of the method of Java interface which is introduced in Java version 8. But before Java version 8, such concept of static method was not available inside an interface. Compiler couldn't allow it. But concept of static method inside class already introduced in Java. That is, we can easily define static method inside classes since older version of Java. No issue in that, and compiler also allow it. So question comes that what is need of static method inside an interface even if it is already introduced in classes? Why Java people introduce it inside an interfaces? What is need of it? All we are going to discuss in this tutorial. So don't worry, just keep watching till end. I will cover all these points. Okay. So static method is the method of an interface which is defined with static keyword with its own body or implementation. Okay. And when I will implement it practically, then you will get a clear view about static method. Now let's focus on a syntax of static method. To create static method, first you will need to write static keyword. And next to the static keyword, you will have to write a return type and then the name of static method. And static methods are non-abstract methods. And non-abstract methods have its own body. And hence, we will need to provide body to the static method. And remember one thing, all the methods of an interface are implicitly or by default public except private methods. And static method is one of the method of interface, right? And hence static method is also implicitly public. That is, we do not need to specify public modifier before static method because Java compiler automatically add public modifier before static method in an interface. And if you specify a public modifier before static method, then it's also valid. No issue in that. But if you don't specify, then Java compiler automatically add public modifier before static method. Clear? So this is the simple syntax of static method that we have to follow to write static method in the program. Now let's focus on purpose of static methods. First purpose is we can use static methods in an interface to provide utility methods. And utility methods are the set of methods that perform common mathematical operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and so on. So basically, we can use static methods in an interface to provide utility methods. And what does it mean exactly? I will explain practically. Then you will clearly understand it. Okay. And second purpose is static method in an interfaces are typically used to provide common functionality that can be shared across multiple implementation classes. And third purpose is static methods provide security to the program. So how it provides security to the program and all I will explain practically. Now let's understand it practically. First, I am going to explain how static methods are used to provide utility methods. But before that, I will explain what problems developer had to face without static method. Okay. Now see here, I am going to create simple program of addition. For that, let's create a class and suppose test class. Okay. Having one method and suppose add method. And let's pass here two integer type of parameter and it's suppose int a and int b. Okay. And then return here a plus b. Okay. Now let's call this add method by creating an object of test class. Okay, so for that let's create another class and it's suppose main class. Here inside the main class, let's create an object of test class and it's suppose test t equals to new test. Okay, and let's call here t dot add Let's pass here integer type values, because here we have passed integer type of parameters, right? So here we will need to pass integer type value, and it's suppose 5 and, 9. Okay. So here I have to print a result of this addition. Okay. So we can pass it inside println method. Okay. So just copy and paste here. Okay. And comment out this line. So here I have called this add method using test class object, because this add method is a non-static method, and non-static methods are belong to an object. That is, non-static methods work only for an object in a program. So this add method is a non-static method, and hence this method will work only for a test class object, because I have created this add method inside a test class, and that's why I have called this add method using test class object. Okay. Now let's run the code. Let's see. Now see here, code compiles fine and we got an expected output. But if we think internally, when this program get execute, then first test class will load into a memory, then test class object will create, and then JVM will provide memory for test class object. And then this add method get called and we will get an output. So basically, to call this simple add method, all these things will happen internally, and due to this, somewhere execution time may increase, and it may affect on performance of a program, right? So always try to write a program in efficient way so that it will improve the performance of a program, and it will be a good programming practice. So due to this performance issue, Java people introduce static method inside class. So instead of doing all this stuff, just create static method inside class. So let's make this method as a static. Okay. So let's write here static keyword. Now this method is a static method, or we can call it utility method. So this is static method, and static method belong to a class, not belong to an object. And hence to call this static method, we do not need to create an object of test class. Okay. We can directly call it using class name. Okay. So call this method using class name instead of this test class object. So here class name is test. So in this scenario, if we think internally, when this program get execute, then static data or static method will directly load into context memory. And context memory is a separate memory inside JVM. And data on a context memory always ready to execute first before creating any object. And due to this, execution time will decrease and performance of a program will definitely increase. So always keep in mind, static methods will execute fast as compared to non-static methods. Clear? All right. Now let's run the code. You can see here code compiles fine without any compilation error. So basically, to create simple utility methods, you do not need to go at object level. You can do it at class level also. So always keep in mind, if you have to create simple utility methods in a program, then always go with a static method. It will definitely improve the performance of a program. But again question comes that Java already introduced static method inside a class. Then what is need of static method inside an interface? That means why Java people introduce static method inside the interface, right? So as we discussed earlier, to perform simple mathematic operation or to create simple utility method, we can create static method inside class and call it using class name. But my point is, if we are not going to create an object of class and all, then it doesn't make any sense to create class for simple utility method. And Java creators might had thought about it and introduce static method inside an interface. So instead of, we can simply create static method inside an interface, because we cannot create an object of an interface. So if we think performance wise as compared to class, interface is lightweight than class. So it's better option to go with interface to create utility methods. So let's create static method inside an interface. For that I am creating new file. Okay. So go to the file, click on new and then click on interface. Okay. And name it I1 interface. Let's create here static method, and we know the syntax of static method, that is how to write static method. Okay, int add int a int b, and simply return here return a plus b. Okay, now call this method, but we can call methods only inside main method, right? So question comes that can we define main method inside an interface? That means is it valid to create main method inside an interface? So yes, it's completely valid. Java version 8 onwards, we can create main method also inside an interface, because main method is also static method, and hence Java allow main method inside an interface since Java 8. Okay. So let's create main method inside an interface. Okay. Now let's call static method using interface name, is I1 dot add. Okay. And let's pass here integer value 5 and 9. So here I have called this static method using interface name. Okay, because I have created this static method inside an interface. Okay, and hence this static method is belong to an interface, and hence we will need to call it using interface name, same as that of class level static method. Class level static method is belong to a class, that's why we can call it using class name. Similarly, we can call interface static method using interface name. Okay, so instead of this we can write like this also, so that this println method will print result on display. Okay, now let's run the code. Let's see will it work or not. Okay, you can see here program executes successfully without any compilation error. So in this way we can use static methods in an interface to provide utility methods, and this is the main purpose of static method inside an interface. Clear? Now I'm going to explain how static method in an interfaces are typically used to provide common functionality that can be shared across multiple implementation classes. Okay, so for that let's create another class. Now let's imagine you are creating a program for ATM system. Okay, so for that let's create an interface, and it's suppose user interface. Okay, and let's define one method here, and it's suppose insert card method, and I want this method as abstract, and all the methods in an interface are by default abstract, and hence we do not need to write here abstract keyword. Compiler do it automatically. An abstract method doesn't have its body, and hence I have just declared this method with semicolon at the end. Okay, and let's define one more method here, and it's suppose enter pin method. Okay, and I want to make this method as a default, so just write here default keyword. And default method has its own body, all we have discussed in the previous tutorial. Okay, so print here please enter a pin. Okay, so this is default method. Okay, and I want to create one more method here, and it's suppose withdraw cash method, and I want to declare this method as static, and we know how to declare static method, that is syntax already we have discussed, right? So just add here static keyword at the beginning of method signature and provide body to the static method, because static method is a non-abstract method, and non-abstract method has its own body same as that of default method. So let's print here please enter amount. So this is interface static method. Okay, so basically here I have create one abstract method, one default method, and one static method. Now let's provide implementation for abstract method of user interface, because we cannot provide implementation to the abstract methods inside an interface, but we can provide it inside other classes. Okay, so let's create one class here, and it's suppose test1 class. Okay, and implement here user interface. And now let's provide implementation for user interface abstract method, and it's insert card method. Okay, and let's print here please insert card. Okay, now let's create one more class here, and it's suppose test2 class. Okay, and here also I want to implement user interface. Okay. And here also I will need to provide implementation for user interface abstract method. Okay. So let's copy and paste here. And right here, please insert card properly. Now let's call all the methods of user interface. So for that, let's create another class to put main method and executable code. And it's suppose test class. Okay. Now let's call the methods. But to call methods, we will need to create object of user interface. But unfortunately, we cannot create an object of interface in Java. But we can create an object of implemented classes, that is test1 and test2 class, and can access or call the methods of user interface because test1 and test2 class implement user interface, right? So let's create an object of test1 class. Okay. And now call here insert card method and then t1 dot enter pin method and t1 dot withdraw cache method. But if I write like this, then compiler will raise an error because this withdraw cache method is a static method, and this static method I have created inside an user interface. So basically this static method is belong to an user interface. Okay, and hence we will need to call this static method using user interface, same as that of class level static method. When we create static method inside an class, then static method is belong to a class and we will need to call it using class name. Similarly here we will need to call static method using interface name. Okay, so hit user. Okay, so here I have called this static method using interface name and it's user dot withdraw cache. Similarly, let's create an object for test2 class and call the methods. Okay, and here also we can call user dot withdraw cache. Now let's run the code. Now see here, program run successfully without any error. You can see here this static method is common for all classes, right? That is, all classes can share it commonly. So basically we can use interface static method to provide common functionality that can be shared across multiple implementation classes. And this is one of the purpose of static method. Now as we discussed in previous tutorial, we can easily override default method of an interface. That is, we can easily modify or change implementation of default method in other classes. But can we override interface static method in other classes? Let's check it out. So just copy and paste here, okay, inside test1 class. And print here, please enter valid amount, okay. So in this case, compiler won't raise any error because compiler consider it as another static method of a class and it's not a overriding. So basically, if you try to override a static method of an interface by defining a similar method in the implementing interface, it will be considered as another static method of the class. So let's check it out. So this static method is class level static method. That is, this static method is belong to a class and hence we will need to call it using class name. So let's call it using test1 class. Okay, test1 dot withdraw cache. Now let's run the code. Now you can see here, this is the output of interface static method and this is the output of class level static method. Okay, so output of both these static methods are different and it proves that we cannot override static method in other classes and the meaning of static itself is fixed, and that's why we cannot modify or change implementation of static method because it's already fixed. So if we think static method is a secure method because no one can modify it, so basically static method provides security to the program because static method cannot be overridden in subclasses, and this is also one of the purpose of static method. Clear? So always keep in mind, if you have to create only utility methods, that is static methods in a program, then you must go with interface static method. It will definitely increase the performance of a program. And second thing, if you want to implement common functionality for all classes without overriding it and without creating an object of a class, then also you can go with interface static method. Clear? Now let's focus on some rules that we should remember about static method. Okay. So first rule is all static methods must have the static modifier in their declaration and they must have a body. And due to these two things, compiler understand that this is a static method in a program. Okay. Otherwise, compiler will raise an error. And second rule is we can invoke interface static method by using the interface name only. We do not need to create object and all. Okay. And third rule is static method cannot be overridden or inherit into subclasses or subinterfaces. That already we have discussed. Okay. And fourth rule is static method are implicitly or by default public. But after Java 9, we can make it private also. I will cover this point further in interview questions. Okay. So these are the basic rules about static methods that we should remember. Now let's focus on some frequently asked interview questions about interface static method. Okay. So first question is, can we have static method in an interface? And answer is of course yes. You can simply say Java 8 onwards an interface in Java can have static methods. And you can see here I have created static method inside an interface. And second question is, can we override interface static method? And answer is no. You can simply say we cannot override interface static method. And if you try to override interface static method in other classes, then it will be considered as another static method of the class. That already we have discussed. Clear? Now third question is, can we overload interface static methods? This is very important question as interview point of view. So the answer of this question is yes, we can overload static method with same name but different parameters. Because the rule of method overloading is method name must be same but parameters must be different, right? And method overloading happen within a same class. But here we are going to see method overloading of interface static method and hence it will happen within same interface. There is no concept of superclass and subclass for method overloading. It always happen within a single class or interface. So let's check it out. So here we have already created a separate interface to understand the concept of utility methods, right? Now see here, if I create one more static method, okay, so let's copy and paste here and let's pass here one more parameter and it's suppose int c, okay, and now return here a plus b plus c, okay. So here I have created two static methods with same name but different in parameters and it's nothing but the method overloading. So these are the overloaded methods. Now let's call it and let's pass here one more value and it's suppose 2. And let's run the code now. You can see here we got an expected output without any compilation error. So basically we can easily overload interface static method. No problem at all. Okay. And fourth question is, what is the main difference between interface default method and static method? So you can simply say that default method can be overridden in other implementation classes, but static method cannot be overridden. And this is the main difference between default method and static method. So we cannot override static method that already we have discussed. Now let's check it out. Can we override default method? This point I have covered in previous tutorial, but still I am going to clear this point here. Okay. So let's open this program and let's copy interface default method. Okay. And it's enter pin method. So let's copy and paste here inside an test1 class. Okay. And change the implementation of default method. So here we can write, please enter valid pin and specify this method as a public, because all the method inside an interface are by default public. So this method is also specified as public. And let's remove this default keyword from here. And now let's run the code. You can see here we got an expected output. Please enter valid pin. So it's proof that we can easily override default method in implementation classes. And fifth question is, can we declare interface static method as private? And this is also very important question as interview point of view. So answer is yes. Java version 9 onwards we can declare static methods as private. But this concept was not supported before Java 9, because this concept is introduced in Java version 9. So let's check it out. So just add here private modifier. Okay. And now let's run the code. You can see here we got an expected output without any compilation error. So it's proof that we can declare interface static method as private. And last question, can we create main method inside an interface? And answer is yes. You can simply say on Java 8 onwards we can create static method inside an interface, and main method is also static method, and hence we can create main method also inside an interface. No issue at all. Okay. You can see here I have already created main method inside an interface. That's all. I hope you understand the concept of interface static method. And for more help, you can refer my notes that I have mentioned in the description of this video. So for now, I am going to end this session. So keep learning, keep growing, and thank you so much for watching.